Today is June 6, 2014, and we are interviewing Wilmer Seibert at Aveston Park. Mr. Seibert was born January 15, 1948. My name is Cheryl Walker, and I will be interviewing Mr. Seibert. Mr. Seibert, could you state for the record what war and branch of service you served in?
The Vietnam War in the Army, United States Army.
And what was your highest rank?
My highest rank was Sergeant E5.
Would you like to share your story at this time?
Well, yeah, I can tell a little bit about it. I graduated from high school in 1966. I could not find a good job, so I volunteered for a draft. I was drafted in the United States Army. I went in August of 66 till August of 68. I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for basic training. I went to Fort Polk, Louisiana for advanced infantry light arms training. From there I went to Vietnam. I was in Vietnam in January of 67 to January of 68. I turned 15 on the 15th of January in 19, I messed that up. So I spent my whole 19th year in Vietnam. I served with the 1st Infantry Division, 1st Squadron, 4th U.S. Cavalry, was an armored mechanized unit that had tanks and armored personnel carriers. And our unit was solely, while I was there, we did recon, search and destroy missions, so on and so forth. I went over there as 11 Bravo, which was a light arms infantry. When I got to Vietnam, they changed my MOS to 11 Delta, which is recon scout, so we did a lot of that. In Vietnam, we were in the Iron Triangle, we were in the Michelin Rubber Plantation, Loc Ninh, Phu Loi, Lai Khe, Cambodia, along the Cambodian border. We spent the whole year in the jungle. When I first got there, I spent a week of training as a newbie in the country, and then they flew me out in a helicopter to the Iron Triangle. I got to come out of the jungle to go to R&R in Tokyo, Japan for 5 days, and then when I came back, we went back into the jungle. The entire year I was there, we were only back in base camp maybe 3 times, besides coming and going. And the last 30 days I was in country, they sent me back to the rear, and we was in Phu Loi at the time, and about 10 miles down the road was Xi'an, which was the 1st Infantry Division replacement. And every morning we would get up, there were 2 armored personnel carriers and a tank, and we'd run down the road as fast as we could to Xi'an. And when we got there, then the road was open, and that was the way we cleared the road for mines. On the next morning we got up and went back to Phu Loi, so we did that back and forth. The last week I was in Nam, I took out a unit, a squad, to train the new people that got into Vietnam, and we were supposed to be in a clear area. And when we got out in there, we encountered booby traps that the ARVNs had set and never took back. So I had 3 people in the squad that I took out that were wounded. And 2 of them I had to go out through and get them back and bring them back out of the area. So that I didn't want to do that again, so I just stayed back after that, and I came on back to the States. I served at Fort Carson, Colorado for 6 months, and that was with the 5th Infantry Division, and they were getting ready to go to Vietnam as a full division, and we started training those people for it. It was a lot of fun trying to train somebody with jungle warfare when there was snow on the ground. So, but we made it, and they made it over there, and I've met some people since then that were in the units. I go regularly to the 1st Infantry Division reunions whenever I can make it. So, yes.
Where are they held at?
Now, the 5th Infantry Division is in Fort Polk, Louisiana. They moved them back to Fort Polk when they came back from Vietnam. Yeah. 1st Infantry Division is Fort Riley, Kansas. We visited that. A buddy of mine that was in Vietnam with me from down in Missouri, we visited Fort Riley on our way to Colorado Springs for 1st Infantry Division reunion. We found our old unit that we served with, and we had a pretty good time. They treated us like celebrities. It was really nice.
When you went to Vietnam, did you fly?
Yes.
Did you fly commercial?
Commercial, yes. I flew into Oakland, California. We flew out of California and we went to Hawaii for a stop. We went to the Philippines for a stop, and then into Vietnam. We went into Long Binh, the 90th replacement in Long Binh, Vietnam.
When you landed, what did you have with you when you landed?
When we landed in Vietnam, all we had was a little satchel. We had our, trying to think what they called them at that time, our khakis uniforms on. That was it. That's all we brought, toiletries. And then once we got there, then they issued all the jungle fatigues and everything that we needed once we got there.
How many did they issue you?
Oh, probably a week's worth, I'm thinking. Not much, yeah. We traveled pretty light, yeah.
Do you remember, can you remember how heavy your backpack was?
The backpack was probably, the ruck that we carried around was probably 30 to 40 pounds that we had strapped on us.
Did it get lighter as the time went on?
It felt lighter, but it did, and it was the same weight, but one of the fortunate things that I had was when I went into Nam, they sent me into a CAV unit, and we were on armored personnel carriers and tanks, and the only time we had to put our rucks and our rucksacks back on is when we went out on a search and destroy mission or a long range recon or a defensive listening post or see what else we did, ambush patrol. Other than that, when we rode on the tracks, everything was down inside the tracks, and we just had our flak jackets on and our steel pots at the time, which made it nice.
Did you have anything that you kept in your steel pot? Lucky?
I had, no, I didn't. I didn't have anything in my steel pot. I had some mosquito disinfectant on the side of it strapped on, but that's about it, yeah.
When you said you got into base camp, and I'm assuming that was your base camp 3 times.
Right.
While you were there. Was that your base camp?
That was our base camp. When I first went into Vietnam, Charlie Troop, the troop I was with, was stationed up at Lai Kay, and the rest of the squadron was down in Phu Loy. And while we were in the jungle, they picked all our stuff up out of the night. And when we were in Lai Kay, it was beautiful the little while we was in there because it was in a rubber plantation. They had nice hooches built for you. And they moved us down to Phu Loy, where when we got to Phu Loy, it was out in the middle of a big cleared area, and it was hot and tense, and that was it. But those were our main base camps. And like I said, everybody that was in our unit that was there, we was in the jungle beating the bush all the time. You'd come back if you had to go on R&R or something. You came back if you were wounded or something like that, and then you came back into the jungle once you got ready to come back. But yeah, I was very fortunate. The good Lord was with me, I guess. I had a good guardian angel. I never got wounded. Was in a lot of battles, but I lost some good people. It was good friends over there, but the good Lord took care of me.
So you came back to your base camp 3 times. Did you go to other base camps?
No.
So you were out in the jungle?
We were out in the jungle, and we set up a nighttime position every night. Sometimes we stayed in the same area roughly, a couple, 2-3 nights, but we tried to move around so they wouldn't get used to us coming in and getting our pattern of how we set our vehicles up in the defensive position.
What did you sleep on?
We either slept on top of the track or in the track or on the ground.
And when you call a track, what are you talking about?
Well, we had 113 armored personnel carriers. We had M48A3 tanks, diesel tanks, and then they had one tank retriever. And that when something broke down and they had to get towed, they would tow it back in. Yeah. But yeah, and then that's what we slept in. That's what we lived in. That was our little hotel on wheels.
How'd you take baths out in the jungle?
Well, whenever you could, okay, they had a little shower head that was made out of canvas, OD green. It was about this big. It took a little over a gallon of water, and we would hang something off the end of the track, and it had a rope would hang it on there, and you'd get under there on your poncho. You put it down so you wouldn't be in the mud, once you got done, and then you run water on you and you lather it up, and then you use the rest of the water to dry off.
Really?
Yeah, we did that when we had a chance to do it. Yeah, we bathed in bomb craters when we had a chance. The freshwater streams were great, but you had to watch out for leeches, and but that's how we bathed and cleaned. Shave in the morning with a little I used my little canteen pitcher that you'd get drinks in. I used that for water to shave and brush my teeth with in the morning.
Did you ever get fresh water dropped?
All the time. Yeah, we were supplied very well. Helicopters would bring in water for us, and every once in a while they'd send us a hot meal from back at base camp into where we were. But the biggest majority of the time we lived off of sea rations.
Talking about sea rations, was there anything that you really enjoyed eating?
Oh, the sea rations, the best things they had was the beanies and weenies. They always went real fast. Everything else was pretty horrible, but we ate it. There was lima beans, there was beef stew, and there was scrambled eggs and stuff like that. But you try to warm them up, and because otherwise the lima beans and that was real greasy and cold. But you could warm them up a little bit. They taste fairly decent.
What did you use to warm them up with?
We used C4, an explosive, a little white C4. We'd take a little pinch of it off about that big around, lay it down and light it, and then we'd hold it over there and that would heat it for us. That's what we used. Yeah.
Is there anything that, even to this day, that you won't eat out of those because of the sea rations?
No. Because my mom was a halfway decent cook, but I liked all the other stuff. It's just the sea rations they were on the back of the track, and then but that's what you had to eat to live. Whenever we could, we'd send in orders back to base camp, and they'd go to the PX and buy stuff for us, and when we could, they'd ship it in to us. They'd ship beer and soda and stuff like that. And we were allowed to drink 24 hours a day, 7 days a week if we wanted to. That was our own, as long as it didn't differ with our projects we were doing, or our battle plans. And 90% of the time we drank the beer warm. We had ice chests in our tracks, but you couldn't get ice very good. The only time that we did get ice was a few times we got to pull road security, where we just sat alongside the road and took life easy, and the convoys went through. And the Vietnamese had no refrigerated trucks. and they have an ice plant, and they ship their ice to the next town. They would load it in the back of a covered truck, and they'd put ice down, then they'd cover the rice hulls, and they'd put ice down, and they keep doing that. Well, when we pulled road security, as soon as one of them trucks hit where we were, we knew it was an ice truck because it was leaking water. So they'd come across the radio and say, well, we got a leaker. So about halfway through, they'd stop them, and we'd buy ice off of them. Our truck would pull up, get ice what we needed, and we'd have cold beer for a day. Not even a day, and then that was it. So we paid them for the ice and sent them on down the road then.
How much was that ice?
We give them $1. Yeah, I don't even know what it was per length, but they just give us a little chunk big enough to go in our little coolers had in there, and we'd all chip in $1 a piece, you know.
What else would you buy from the locals? Do you remember?
Yeah, we went into a village one time and we ate. We had rice and stuff. We don't know what was in it, but we ate it. You know, it tasted like beef, but I don't think it was beef. That's about it. I didn't, soda. They'd come. If you were set up close to a road and they knew you were there, the little kids, and then they would find and they'd peddle soda to you, and they'd sell their beer to you if you wanted to buy some of their beer.
What kind of soda was it?
It was regular Coca-Cola, Pepsi, stuff like that. Yeah, American soda they had. Yeah.
Did it taste the same?
Same thing. Yeah, yeah, sure did. Yeah.
Might as well.
Yeah, well, sure.
Did you ever see any entertainers?
No, we didn't get to see any entertainers while I was over there. At Christmas time, we were in the jungle, and they asked us if we wanted to go see the Bob Hope show. And at that time, I was getting real short. I was getting ready to go home. In fact, when we got to Vietnam, about 6 months in, they kept telling us that we'll be in 11 months in November, and that we'll probably get to go home for Christmas. Well, they had a deal, the Army did, that when you were serving in Vietnam, if you extended your tour, you went over there for a year. If you extended your tour another 6 months, they would give you 30-day free leave and fly you back to the States, spend 30 days, and then fly back to Nam. Well, there was a lot of people that got there in October and November and were homesick, and they just extended for 6 more months and went home for Christmas. So I didn't get to get home for Christmas. I got home around the 10th of January. But they offered us to go to see the Bob Hope show, and when they outlined the route where it was going and you had to get in a convoy, I just didn't think that was good enough for me. So I just stayed in the jungle with my unit and knew where I was at, and I just left. Yeah, I watched them when I got home.
Who was in that show?
I'm believing Ann Margaret was there at that time. Yeah, Bob Hope with Ann Margaret. He had his normal group of people that he brought along, the dingalings and things like that, some girls. I got to meet them about 4 or 5 years ago up at Springfield, Illinois. And down in Louisville, Kentucky, I went to Vietnam Veterans National Conventions, and they get some of the old entertainers to come, and we got to meet them and see them. Nancy Sinatra, I met her. I got a book signed by her. She was in Vietnam a lot. Another lady, Chris Knoll. She was an entertainer back there. She was in a lot of movies and things like that. She came and seen us. I'm sorry, she did come. I seen her. She come out in the jungle and would come and see us and entertain us every now and then. And she came to see us so much that we actually adopted her. She comes to all the 1st Infantry Division reunions and that, and we see her. And she.
Now, did you get to take an R&R?
Yes, I did. I went to Tokyo for 5 days. That was one of the few times I got to come back. But yes, I went to Tokyo for 5 days, and it was wild. Had a good time while we were there, and we'd sit in the room and watch television, and it was in Japanese, you know, and we'd just laugh ourselves because we watched Bonanza. And Big Hoss Cartwright, you know how big he was. Well, he was on there, and he was going, "Oh, George, go boy!" You know, it just sounded so funny. We just laughed. But yeah, I got to go there for 4 or 5 days, I think it was.
Did you buy anything while you were there?
No, just took some pictures and looked, you know, went to the USO while we were there and things like that. Yeah.
Did you carry a camera with you?
I had an old Polaroid camera where you take the picture, pull it out, and it would develop. That's the only camera that I had in Vietnam. I got some pictures at home yet with that. Yeah.
Do you recall the day that you flew home?
Well, I can remember when I left Zeon, they sent us back down to the 90th replacement, and they were so backlogged on trying to get flights out that they flew us from there up to Cam Ranh Bay. And we stayed like 2 or 3 days in Cam Ranh Bay, and then they flew us out of there. And when you left Vietnam, you was allowed to take a bottle of hooch on the plane with you, so everybody could have a good time. And I can remember getting on that airplane and sitting down, and everybody was excited about leaving. And when the stewardess come on, they were Japanese, and we was sure hoping to see American girls, you know. So they got pretty quiet on that, but we flew from there to Tokyo. And in Tokyo, they refueled and everything, and then we got a new flight crew, which were American girls, brown-eyed girls. And from there, we flew into Seattle, and we processed out of Fort Lewis. And they give us our dress green uniforms with everything on it, and then we flew from there. I flew into St. Louis.
When you flew into St. Louis, how were you treated?
Not very good. I don't think anybody that flew back from Vietnam got treated well. Yeah, people that look at you, you know, the first thing you wanted to do is to make sure you get home and get your uniform off, because, you know, people didn't come up and say thank you or anything. You just, there's incidents, and some of my friends came back through California, and he was called baby killers and things like that. It wasn't very nice.
Did someone meet you?
No. I flew into St. Louis, and my dad picked me up. I took a shuttle from Lambert down to downtown St. Louis, and my dad and my brother and my one good friend, Ralph Wellinghoff, who was killed in Vietnam in '69, was there. I met with them, and then we went on home. He's going to back down.
What did you do after your service? And did you immediately go to work?
Yes. Back then you could find a job. When I first got out of high school, you couldn't find a job. That was a reasonable job. You know, they asked you if you served in the Army yet, and if you told them no, they just didn't hire you. But yes, I went to work. Trying to think of what I did the first time I went to work. I ended up working at a place in St. Louis for 1.5 years when I got out of Vietnam. It was called Chevrolet Shell. Chevrolet had a contract with the government to build 105 Howitzer projectiles. And I worked there for 1.5 years, and then after that I went to work in an auto body repair shop for my uncle, and then I went to a car dealership, and then I ended up going to a car dealership in Collinsville, Illinois, a Lincoln Mercury dealership, and I spent 27 years there. So.
Did you use like the GI Bill or anything?
I went to school at night at Kaskaskia Junior College. Yes, I did. I used it and took up residential wiring and air conditioning, and I never went into the fields, but it's helped me some and stuff I did. But yeah, I basically stayed in the automotive repair. I run a service department for the Lincoln Mercury dealership.
That's why I want to put the plastics up front.
Now you said that you go to reunions and you made close friends and you still see them. How many? I mean, yearly do you go to reunions?
The Big Red One has a reunion every year. Yes, it does. I've gone to 5 in the last 7 years. 2 of the years, one year I was in Tucson, Arizona. I had my right knee replaced, and then let's see, last year I went to Jacksonville, Florida, and they had it in St. Louis one year. There was 2 years. Both times were surgery years. I couldn't make it, but other than that, I didn't get started till St. Louis. Once I went there and started meeting the people, and then got connected with some of the buddies that I was in Vietnam with. So there's a group of about 10 of us that normally go every year.
Do you enjoy them?
Yes. Yeah. Every place you go is it's in a different state and that, and it draws in different people, and you run into people that you haven't seen for 47 years. Yes. Yeah. It's a great thing.
Very good. You belong to the Vietnam Veterans chapter here in Aveston.
Yeah.
Do you belong to any others?
I belong to Vietnam. I'm a lifetime member to Vietnam Veterans. I belong to the American Legion, and that's about it.
How do you think the service has affected your life, your service?
Well, it's affected me in several different ways. Some bad ways and some good ways. I had a lot of trouble when I first got out of the service with post-traumatic stress disorder that I didn't even know I had. I have complications from Agent Orange. I have type 2 diabetes. I have glaucoma. I have a heart condition. It's called ischemic heart, where the outer veins in my heart are starting to clog. Let me see what else. I have some kidney problems from the stress portion of it, but on the other hand, the VA, and we've heard a lot about the VA in the news, but I'm here to say that they have always treated me very well. I've never had any trouble getting any services whatsoever, and I've been in Tucson, Arizona, in their hospital down there, and it's just magnificent. I've been in John Cochran in St. Louis, and all the services that I got from them are really good. I'm a disabled veteran, so I get a little pension from there, which helps a lot, and I just enjoying life now. I started going to post-traumatic stress disorder classes at Jefferson Barracks. We had group, and that really helped a bunch. I started going to them and talking and sitting down with 15, 20 veterans, and basically when you get a bunch of veterans together, it's what they talk about is just it's the same thing that you've gone through, troubles with drinking, troubles with this, divorces, and so on and so forth, diabetes. I think 99% of the people that serve in Vietnam have diabetes. That's from the Agent Orange. But once I got going there, then I started going to the reunion, and I hooked up with the people that I've served with, and it's helped a bunch. It really has. I have no trouble sleeping at night anymore. I used to not sleep very good. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and check out the whole place where I was living and make sure everything was locked down tight. And real paranoid at times when you got around a lot of people, but it's easing up and it's helped.
I'm glad to hear that. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, let me think. Not really. I mean, you know, we was in a lot of incidents in Vietnam, but one of them where you trusted your brother, you know. And I think if everybody ever understands the Vietnam veterans as a group, we're all brothers and sisters. We will take care of each other. We help each other. I just did the motorcycle ride run for the wall in May, and we were up in Washington, D.C. over Memorial Day. And I joined. The ride starts in L.A. and goes up to Washington, motorcycle ride. A friend of mine from New Baden and I joined it in Wentzville, and we went from Wentzville down through Louisville, Kentucky, Indiana, up through West Virginia, and into Arlington, Virginia is where we stopped the final night. We went over to Wentzville on a Monday, registered that night. Tuesday mornings when we started out, and then by Friday evening we was in Arlington, Virginia. And along the way, when we left Wentzville, we went to the city of Wentzville, and they had their school band out and played for us. And I don't know if people know this or not, but Wentzville, Missouri has the first Vietnam veteran memorial in the United States. It was dedicated in 1967. And from there we rode to Jefferson Barracks Hospital. They had a little thing there for us, and we got to meet with the patients. We got to go in the hospital and go up and say hi to the people that couldn't come down. And then from there we went on and we stopped at a VA center in Kentucky. We stopped at a memorial in Kentucky, which just amazed me. And along the way, every place we stopped, there was Legions there or some organization, and they'd have free cold water, free Gatorade for you to drink while you stopped. We stopped every 100 miles for fuel, for gasoline. And every night when we stopped at the stop where we were going to spend the night, there was a meal supplied for us from the Legions, from this. We had fish fries, we had barbecued chicken. The entire trip I bought 3 meals. That was it. 3 times people had chipped up and bought fuel for us. And in the group I was in, there was 597 motorcycles. And we sat there one night and tried to figure this up. The UAW in Kentucky paid for our first free fuel. But you take 600 motorcycles and 3 gallons of bike, that's 1,800 gallons of gas, and they pumped premium, which was over $4 a gallon. So that was quite a donation they made for 3 times along the thing. And like I say, we'd stop and there'd be picnic tables just full of little snacks, power bars, peanuts, chapstick, you know, anything that you want, they gave you. It was there along the way. It was a wonderful ride. We got up there. We're the only motorcycle group that is allowed to ride into Arlington Cemetery. We rode 400 motorcycles in to Arlington. We parked and we walked over to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We laid a wreath as a unit there. From there we went to the Lincoln Memorial and sat in the front, and they took a group picture of us. And from there we went to the Vietnam Wall in Washington and laid a wreath. And then once we laid that wreath, the ride was over as far as what we done. Then Sunday morning, we went and rode the Rolling Thunder ride in Washington, and it was just unbelievable. You'd almost have to be there to believe it. There was over 1 million motorcycles in Washington that day. We parked in the Pentagon North parking lot, and I believe the internet told us it was 67 acres. And you couldn't put another motorcycle in that parking lot. And I mean, we parked them alongside each other so close that you had trouble getting off the bike and getting back on. The parade started at noon, and where we were positioned in the parking lot, we didn't get to fire our motorcycles up till 1 o'clock. And then we went on through and down through Washington and all over and back to where the Korean War Memorial is, and there was a big grass area where they parked us. And the bikes finally stopped coming into that parking lot at 4:30 in the afternoon. That's how many motorcycles was there. And it was just fantastic. I mean, that whole trip give you confidence back in this crazy world, you know, that there's people out there that appreciate you. We went to the one school in West Virginia where the little kids, they fed us lunch in their cafeteria. And then after that, all the little kids was out in the ball diamond, and they had little books, run for the wall. And they asked you for your autographs. You'd sign an autograph for them. So it was pretty good. There was a lot of warm feelings there. It was a great trip. I enjoyed it.
Well, at this time, I would like to tell you thank you for the time that you served our country. And I would also like to thank you for the opportunity that you gave me to interview you. And I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure doing it.